Chris the Carpenter here, RocketBrandStudios.com, and this is the assembly video for the pen kit for the Tadpole robot, to lift a pen up and down, and with an encoder kit to allow your robot to draw pictures. So let's get right into it. I've taken all the paper off all the plexiglass already, so it's just the raw plexiglass. And we'll start with this base plate here. Okay, so actually the first thing I did was I took 2 3/8 screws and nuts and washers, and I ran them through the plate. These slots here are oversized, so you need to put a washer on there. And these are what's going to actually mount this to the robot itself. I put them in there right now, basically so I wouldn't lose them. Okay, we'll move on to these little pivot arms. And the first thing we do is we put a nut into the little T-track area here. Okay, so you have a nut there, and you kind of hold it with your fingers so the nut doesn't fall out. Lines up with little notches in the bottom plate, and then you run a screw through into that nut. This is probably the hardest thing to do on this whole kit because it's just kind of awkward to keep everything straight. Okay, got another one to do. Nut. And, ooh, I did this one all cattywampus in my hands. I think I can still get it. Ah, I'm all crooked. All you got to do is get the nut to catch, and then you're set, right? Okay. So, there it is. There is, there's 2 pivot arms on the base plate. Okay, you got me up there? Alright. Now, let's see if we can put the main kind of arm together. Here are our pieces. 4 of them are almost identical, with 2 of them having little notches, right? And then there's one with a big hole. That's the center. So we'll start with these guys. Notch first, and then the one without the notch, and we'll kind of line them up. And then we'll take our servo out of its little bag and run our wire through. Okay. And bada boom, bada bing. So there you go. You got a notch with the butt end of the servo, I guess, the non-spinning end of the servo, and the wire coming out towards the main pivot here in the back. Okay, and now we'll just continue to stack up. We'll go ahead and put this one with the big hole over it, and then again, here's one without the notch, and that goes there, and then finally the one with the notch goes on top, and there is our stack. Okay. So now we'll take the longest skinny screws we got, which is 5/8 256, and we're going to run them through the only 3 holes they'll fit. So again, nut into the bolt. So I'm actually going to put the nut flat against the plastic, the plexi, and then I'm going to screw the screw into it. Okay, just enough to grab. We want all these plates to be a little loosey-goosey, because we want to be able to kind of align them and straighten them up. This one under the wire is always hard. Arrgh! I used to be good at this. Alright, we got you now, you little booger. Oh, almost. Got it. Got it. Okay, again, just snug. And where's my 3rd screw? I suggest when you dump out the little baggie of screws, do it in a dish. Dish or a cookie sheet or something, because they do have a tendency to jump off your desk. Okay, so there we go. There's our main lifting arm. Okay, and servo sticking out the back. And then also, if you look here, when these layers here, I'll straighten these up against the edge of the table. When these layers are straight here, you'll see there's a curve. There's a curve here, and that curve is where the pen rests. Dig it? Staying with me there, cameraman? Alright. Now, this guy onto this guy. Very simple. Slide it between the little ears, and bolt goes through. And it's the big bolt. It's a 632. It's the one that's bigger than all the rest. There's only one of them in here. And then there's 2 nuts. Now you don't want to, this first nut you don't want to tighten down, because you don't want to squeeze these together and prevent this from pivoting, right? So get the first one on there, and then tighten the second one up to it, and then you might want to grab a pair of needle nose pliers and loosen the first one to tighten it up against the second. So we would loosen that to lock it against there. Okay. Now you want to be sure this goes up and down freely. This one's a little sticky at the bottom there. I got to kind of push it. So what I'll do is I'll actually go back to these pivot ears that we did earlier, and I'll just loosen them just a wiggle, just like a half turn, quarter turn, whatever. And then I'll physically pull them to the outside. See, I got my finger here, and I'm snugging them out like that. And then tighten it, and then the same thing. I'm going to push it to the outside and snug it, and now we're all loosey-goosey just like we should be. Dig it? Dig it. Okay, I'm going to actually tighten this pivot down so it won't pivot, just so I have an easier thing to hold while I'm doing the rest of these. Okay, last but not least, we have our baggie of servo parts. This is what came with the servo. These two, am I in frame? These two little double-sided arms, worthless. This is the one we want, the single arm. And what you do is you take your, this is the little push it up and down lever, okay? And we want to just physically hold it up to the servo horn and figure out what holes line up, because there's like 8 holes on the servo horn and only 2. So just hold it up, figure out what lines up. For the record, it's 2 from the center and 3 from the tip. And then grab your X-Acto knife, okay, because we have to make these holes bigger. I've actually already done so here, but you literally just stick the X-Acto knife in there and spin it, and you can drill out these holes. You have to go from both sides because you are kind of doing a tapered hole here, right? And so you literally just until these are big enough for these little 1/4-inch screws to stick through, okay? And then we mount it. So we hold that up there. The head has got to go this way. The head of the screw's got to be on this side, and the nut has got to be on the outside here. So get a nut on there. Snug that guy down. Done. Take the second 1/4-inch, it's the shortest small screw, and get her on through there. Another nut. And snug it on. Okay. Bada boom, bada bang. So there is your lift arm. Okay. There's your lift arm. It's horn on back. And it simply attaches like that. And so now when your servo's down, it lifts the pen, and when it servos up, come on baby, I don't want to strip the gears, it goes down. Simple enough. Now, before you actually mount this to the servo, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and plug this into your microcontroller, and then you want to run a basic servo program, like the servo sweep program under examples in the Arduino software. But instead of using pause position in the code, change that directly to a 90. So instead of the servo sweeping, it will just go to the center 90 and stay there. And the reason you want this, you want to center the servo, is you have no idea what position it's in right now from the factory. So assuming we've plugged this into our robot, we've told it to go to 90 degrees, you've heard it twitch to 90, you've unplugged it, we're now at 90 degrees. Now we can attach this horn, and actually, you know what? These layers are a little loose. I forgot to snug up these 3 here that I told you not to snug up, right? And it's so loose that the screws are falling out. Haste makes waste and all that, right? Alright, don't forget to tighten these 3 down that I told you to leave loose. Okay. So, we've centered our servo, we've gotten our lift arm on there to lift this up and down. What probably the first code you want to run is go from 90 degrees to like 95, 100 degrees at most, and then like down to 85 and 80. The goal being you want to find the positions of this servo that correlate to this being lifted just a wiggle and lowered completely. In its lowered position, this should actually be up off the deck just slightly. That way the weight of the pen itself is drawing. It's not being, it has room for the pen to sit. And then once you're happy with the position of this, go ahead and take this itty bitty little center screw, and it goes, believe it or not, in the center right there to finally affix, well, you get the point, to finally affix this servo horn. Okay? Now, onto the robot. Do I have one here? So, here's our tadpole robot. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to yank the breadboard off, okay? And that's going to expose the hole at the top where the pen goes through. These mounting screws that I mentioned earlier, that I just put in here with the washers on them, the one I didn't want to lose, they will mount in these two holes where the front servo normally goes. These two holes. Your sensor can stay, but you will have to unplug it because the wires are in the way of the hole for the pen, right? And of course you're going to need wheel encoders so you can move precise ways. But for all intents and purposes, this guy will bolt right there. Okay? From there, it's just a matter of wiggling this and doing some experiments to make sure your pen, which is right here, I'll do this to the big camera, so your pen is right here. You want to wiggle this so your pen is directly centered between the wheels here and centered between the wheels here, straight up and down. That way, it will turn on its center. It'll turn on its center pivot, and so you don't have to do any math on the pen. Right? All right. So there you go. That is the whole. Oh yeah, and by the way, your pen fits there, and you can use just about anything you want. I have these little notches, which are just perfect for sort of snagging a rubber band around, and you can just, if I can do this like that, you can kind of rubber band your pen on. Fits a zip tie as well, so you can zip tie your pen on. Zip ties seem to work really well because you can slide the pen up and down a little bit to zero it out, you know, with the paper. But however you want to stick that on there, right? You know, electrical tape, zip ties, rubber band, anything you got in your junk drawer will just about work. So there you go. There's the pen rig for drawing pictures with a pen and the encoder kit with the tadpole robots. Do that all cute for the overhead. I am Chris the Carpenter. Please visit rocketbrandstudios.com. Take a look at the tadpole robots, the pen kits, all the other cool accessories and cool stuff you can do with them. And hey, buy a robot from me. Support the American economy. All right, folks. Chris the Carpenter, signing out. Ting!